Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of learning about cell organelles. So again, yesterday, if you felt a little bit kind of like, this is so much stuff, just know that over the next few days, I think I said this yesterday, we're going to be going over this. We're going to be going over it and going over it and going over it and going over it. But it does take some effort on your part to be engaged as I'm talking about stuff and to be listening. And it might take some extra time studying and doing Quizlet, which is what you're doing after this, to really practice getting the names of these things, these organelles, and understanding what they do inside the cell. So we're quickly just going to do a little bit of a review, and then we'll move on to a couple new things for today. So again, cells are the basic unit of life. They're the building blocks of life. Some organisms are only made of one cell, which is unicellular. Some are made of many cells, which is multicellular. And if they are made of many cells, those cells kind of work together to keep an organism living and functioning. And then again, inside of a cell are tiny little bits and pieces, little parts called organelles, kind of like organs in your body. And yesterday, I went over most of the organelles that are found inside of a cell. And so we're going to just go through some of the main ones here that you absolutely have to know. So here we go. Again, most of you already know what a nucleus is. You knew that prior to yesterday. A nucleus is the control center of the cell. It controls all the activities that go on in the cell. The cell membrane, again, it goes around the outside of the cell, and it controls what enters and leaves the cell. So I think yesterday we compared it, if we're comparing it to a school, it's like the door that lets people in and out, or a security guard maybe that says you can come in, oh no, you can't. Things like that. So again, that's the cell membrane. Other two ones that are really important, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It changes food into energy. It's like this energy creating organelle. So how I kind of tend to remember this, and in class it's a little bit better because I have everybody yelling this with me, but how I usually remember this is I make people flex, make people show me their muscles, and we say mighty mitochondria because it gives us energy. And so we all shout mighty mitochondria, and we try to make it so that the other classes can hear us, but we can't do that. So maybe in your house, just flex your muscles and say mighty mitochondria, because that's where your energy is made in the cell. And then vacuoles. Again, vacuoles are storage areas inside the cell. We've got food, we've got water, and we've got waste. Probably the most important one that you need to remember is the water, and that is obviously an area for water storage found inside of the cell. Yesterday, I talked about how plant and animal cells they're different from each other, and one of the differences is because of the water vacuole. Plant cells have one large water vacuole, and animal cells have a bunch of little tiny ones. Okay. So here's where we're moving on today. We are looking a little bit more at some of those differences between plant and animal cells. So the reason that plants and animals are different, or one of the ways that they are, is based on what plant cells have inside of their cells that animal cells don't have. So again, it says, follow along with me. It says plants are autotrophs. So they have different cell parts or organelles to help them use this energy from the sun to make food. Animals are heterotrophs. So they have cell parts or organelles that help them use the energy from food that they eat or absorb. So plant cells, because they're able to make their own energy from the sunlight, they actually have an extra organelle. So that's what we're going to be looking at. One of them has to do with being able to create energy. Other one is just for structure and support. So these two next organelles are only found in plant cells. You are not going to find these two organelles in animal cells because, again, they require different things because plants can make their own energy. So first one is the cell wall. Now, the cell wall is not the cell membrane. Plant cells have a cell membrane, but on the outside of the cell membrane is the cell wall. So this gives a plant extra structure and support. So think, like, a plant can't like walk along and go hunt or for food. It can't move a lot to go get its energy. Its goal is to be strong and supportive so that it can, get the sunlight. So we don't need this. We want to be able to move around. Plants don't need that as much flexibility as we do. So they have this added layer of structure and support. So think of like the school, like a cell. If the cell membrane lets things in and out, an example of the cell wall would be like the walls of the school, the brick walls or cement walls that keep that structure in place. So again, only found in plant cells. The other one is called chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are the structures, the organelles, that are responsible for capturing that sunlight and turning it into sugar or food for the plant cell so that it can use it. So again, because plants are autotrophs, autotroph, self-feeder, auto means self. Because these guys can make their own food using the sunlight, they have this additional organelle called a chloroplast. If they didn't, if the whole plant didn't have chloroplast in its cells, it wouldn't be able to do that. So think of, again, chloroplast, I kind of like to think of as, it says here, the oven in the kitchen that takes heat energy and makes food. Or you could think of an energy, a solar panel, right? If you've seen solar panels anywhere, they take in sunlight and turn it into energy. Or I don't have one with me. Oh, in my classroom I do. I have this little dancing pug where it has a tiny little solar panel on it, and when you put it in the window, it kind of like moves like this and it dances. Same thing. It's taking in energy, it's taking in sunlight and turning it into energy that it can use to groove a little bit and move around. So that's what a chloroplast does inside of the plant cell. The other thing, and I'm just going to kind of quickly go through this because we are going to talk about this a little bit more next week, is that one of the targets that we usually have in a school year is being able to look at microscope pictures. So when you look in a microscope, you should be able to tell, like, oh, this is a plant cell, or no, this is an animal cell. This year, it's based on microscope images. So not actually using a microscope itself. But these are two pictures of plant cells and animal cells. One thing that you should notice kind of right away is plant cells tend to be more boxy or rectangular because they have that additional cell wall for support. Animal cells, again, come in all different shapes and sizes. Blood cells, and, stomach cells, heart cells, muscle cells, sperm cells, egg cells, all of those cells kind of come in different shapes, but you'll notice they're a little bit more irregular. They're not super rectangular like these ones over here. So if I were to show you this picture, okay, it says, what cell parts can you see in the picture? So it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells, kind of, even a little 7 right there, kind of squished together, right? So if I were to say, where is the nucleus? It should be pretty obvious. Each of these little darkened areas are the nucleus. Again, they're not always right in the center, but that's the nucleus. That's the control center of the cell. I can't tell, the mitochondria. I can't tell the Golgi body, like we talked about yesterday. I can't tell where's the little water vacuoles. I mean, maybe I could guess, but really the only other thing that I can see here is I can see the cell membrane, which again is that outer layer that lets things in and out of a cell. I could say that this area right here in each of these, kind of the empty space, is cytoplasm, because that's the gel-like fluid that fills the cell. I might even be able to point out to the nuclear membrane, which is similar to the cell membrane, except it just goes around the outside of the nucleus. That's about it. I can't really tell what other things are. So we've got cell membrane, goes around the outside, and I've got nuclear membrane, goes around the outside of the nucleus, and then the nucleus itself. Otherwise, I can't really tell. This one says, are the cells pictured prokaryotes or eukaryotes? Again, we reviewed this last week. You should know the difference. No nucleus. Okay, true nucleus. Eukaryotes have a true nucleus. And obviously, these have a nucleus, so we would say these are eukaryotes. So again, do you think these are plant cells or animal cells? It's pretty obvious. I'm not seeing any little green chloroplasts. I don't see rigid cell of like an outside wall. They're not square or rectangular. So these would be animal cells, and they look very similar to this right here, just a different color. And these ones are stained, by the way. These are, they put dye on a lot of times on cells, specifically animal cells, because otherwise we have a difficult time seeing them under the microscope. So that's why they look like pink and purple a lot of times. How about this one? Think about it. Do you think these are animal or plant cells? Plant, right? Definitely plant cells. You can see, and actually each of these little boxes in between these long boxes is an individual cell. You can see they're a little bit more rigid. They have, if you look really carefully, which I'm not going to do that because I don't want you to see my wrinkles, but you can see they do have an additional outer layer or wall outside of the cell membrane for additional structure and support. And again, you can see these little green things. Those are all the chloroplasts. The chloroplasts, again, are what take in energy from the sun to produce food or sugar for the cell. So these are definitely plant cells. And sometimes if there's a big space, that's the water vacuole too. Sometimes you can see that on certain microscope pictures. Okay, so what two cell parts, again, are only found in plant cells that are not in animal cells? And you can see in this picture, that would be, think about it. What two organelles are found in plant cells that animal cells do not have? That would be the chloroplast and cell wall. Practice saying that, chloroplast. Some of these words kind of sound like it's a different language. All right, guys, that's all I have for you in terms of new information for the video. What I would like you to do now, and I need you to do this, I need you to do some practicing. So no Google form today. I'm not quizzing you or anything, but I want you to use Quizlet to practice some of these new organelles. And again, this is a tough type of unit where if you don't know your stuff, if you don't practice, the stuff that comes later is going to be a little bit difficult for you. So go do Quizlet for like 10, 15 minutes, and then give yourself a little pat on the back, maybe give a little treat, a little piece of candy or something, and go on with your day. All right, always, guys, if you've got questions, join the meet or send me an email or a little Google Hangout. All right, bye, everybody.